Hello everybody and welcome back to Disney News Channel. Today I am going to do a review of Spider-Man PS4. Spider-Man PS4 is an open world fighter game with an amazing immersive open world and some fun fast-paced combat with an action-packed heartwarming story. The open world is set in New York, where some of the missions will take place. There are also a lot of side missions and other activities you can do around New York. Not only do these things make the game longer, it also makes the world feel more real. When you have the missions in the open world, you can see that they took full advantage of the open world. The animation also looks so real that it's almost like you are there. When they have missions outside of the open world, each one feels special and unique. One of the side things you can do is collect backpacks. Each one has a little part of Spider-Man's past. You can also take landmark photos, and some of them are of the real New York, like Rockefeller Center, but other landmarks are things from the MCU, like the Avengers Tower, making the world feel like the MCU New York, which is a much more fantastical and imaginative New York than the real thing. Not only does it feel like you are in New York, but you also feel like you are Spider-Man. One of the ways the game does this is the way you're swinging through the city and the animation and poses Spider makes, and also how each web is hitting the building instead of going straight up. Also, they have the actors record the two versions of their phone lines, and then play the correct one if you are swinging or not. I know that a lot of people don't like playing as Miles or MJ, but I do like it, because it makes me feel more like a Spider-Man, and gives me more insight into the characters. Last thing this game does to make you feel like Spider-Man is the funny one-liners when he is fighting, which is just a small added detail, but adds so much charm to the Spider-Man world. The story also plays a big part in Devil's Breath, being released into New York by the Sinister Six, led by Dr. Octopus. The story is broken up into 3 acts, and each plot point is set up through the act until all the plots come together in the final act. The 2 main villains we focus on are Martin Lee and Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus makes a great villain, and we get to see his gradual decline to becoming Dr. Octopus. Each one of the cutscenes with him is used to explore what makes him tick in his relationship with Peter Parker, making it hurt even more when he becomes Doc Ock. They also give some focus and intrigue to the rivalry between Doc and Norman, and why he hates Norman Osborn and the problems he makes for him. Mr. Negative is the secondary villain, and in my opinion, is much scarier than Doc Ock, but doesn't have the same build-up or rivalry that Doc and Spider-Man have. Mr. Negative is another surprise villain, but unlike Doc, who becomes Doc Ock in the comics, we don't know who he is before we play the game. The rivalry blows my mind and completely changes the tone of the game into something far more serious. They do a great job at showing his torn feelings about leaving Feast and why he has and what he has built with Aunt May, but also wanting revenge on Norman Osborn for killing his parents and turning him into a monster that we find out later on in my favorite mission. But the one thing I wish they explored more was his relationship with his parents in his childhood. If there was one thing I didn't like about the story, is that I wish the plot points could have come together faster and we would have had more time to explore the other villains and what makes them tick. I also wish that the opening level with Fisk had a little more story purpose. Like, maybe he is one of the villains that break out of jail. My favorite level is when Spider-Man is bitten by Scorpion and is having weird dreams. I don't like this level because it goes on for far too long. The first dream was fine, but it just kept getting worse. Not only was it boring, but it was also pointless because the game already establishes his guilt over those two. So we should already know this information. The Rhino and Scorpion boss fight is pretty unique because the only way to defeat him is with the environment. Scorpion shooting at you while you are fighting Rhino made this battle pretty intense and creative. The last thing I need to talk about is how cool it is having to face two bosses at the same time, Electro and Vulture, with it also being an air battle. My favorite level is Norman's penthouse, which gives you some great backstory about Norman and Harry and his mom, and how Norman created the Devil's Breath as a cure for Harry's cancer, and also how much Harry loved his father and mother. This level also gives you the shocking truth about what happened to Martin Lee, and finally, everything he's done in this game finally makes sense. This level is also an improvement over the other levels when you play as MJ, because you can fight back with a little shotgun, and it also follows the story in a more meaningful and impactful way, unlike the other ones where the most development we would get in those levels is just more drama between MJ and Spider-Man. The final battle with Dr. Octopus is pretty hard, and you constantly have to switch between ground fighting and air fighting. Where the ground is electric, you go up and you start fighting in the air. The dialogue between Spider-Man and Norman is also amazing, and you do feel for Norman, but also hate him because he took the cure to save Aunt May. I also think it is pretty poetic that the final battle takes place on top of Oscorp, since that is where this conflict Doc has with Norman started. The final cutscene also breaks my heart, with Peter having to let go of his mentor and live with the guilt of sending his mentor to prison. This scene was shot so perfectly, with Peter holding back his sadness, and you can tell he doesn't want to hear what Doc has to say. Then there is one last scene where Peter gets the cure to save his aunt, but can't save her since they need more time to make more, or there won't be enough to save everyone. And also, there was the other tiny little reveal that Aunt May knew Peter Parker's secret, and her saying it in the most poetic and beautiful way of saying, I want to see my nephew. Not only does he need to live with the guilt of Doc, but also the guilt of letting his aunt die. This is also the perfect setup for Spider-Man 2, where Spider-Man can get the symbiote suit after wanting revenge on Doc Ock. The last scene is May's gravestone next to Uncle Ben's, saying the line she kept saying throughout the game that I absolutely loved: when you help someone, you help everyone. In the end, this is an amazing game with a great open world, great gameplay, and a great story that takes some time to get into. That's all for now, guys. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon.